everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of the NerdKO Show. I'm Josh.
And I'm Muzz.
And thanks so much for stopping by again. A lot of you really dug the first episode. We got something like 800 combined views between our two channels. So thank you so much for the warm reception and all the awesome feedback that you gave us on both of our YouTube channels.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Definitely. So last week we talked about some of the most ridiculous video game titles, and this week we got a lot more fun stuff lined up for you. Steve Averitt's going to talk about the evolution of controllers over the years and kind of what happened with that.
Then we're going to go into a little thing we did about Craigslist ads and just how creepy they can sometimes be.
Yeah, and I think after we get done with that, we're going to talk about Shameless video game cash-ins as kind of a follow-up to last week's like most ridiculous video game titles. So
yeah, and with that, we're going to jump right into it and go straight to Steve Averitt, our resident classic video game expert. Steve, what do you got for us?
Hey gamers, we're here to touch on some controllers today. I wanted to just kind of show you some controllers from yesteryear and also some of the more recently released controllers. And a lot of these companies that initially released a controller that maybe was pretty cool would eventually revise it to make it into something that was actually better. So to start this out, we'll just go back to the granddaddy of video games, the Atari 2600. Everybody knows this is the Atari controller. It's got the single button. It's very ergonomical if you like sore hands. And you know, I got very used to this controller. But Coleco came out with ColecoVision, but some people don't know this. They came out with an Atari 2600 clone, and their controller had not only the joystick portion, but also added on the paddle, which was a separate thing for the Atari 2600. So they combined it all in one controller. Again, you just got the one button. But it's kind of a neat controller, and it was kind of revised upwards to something better. It's the first example of that you can find in any of the consoles that have been released. The company behind Intellivision, which is Mattel, made their initial Intellivision controller be attachable inside the console. You actually had to unscrew the thing and take it apart to remove the controller, which I did. So this is the Mattel Intellivision controller. And then they revised it to have a controller, a little different color obviously, but this one actually was removable. Whoa, it's almost like, it looks like the Atari plug-in. So it's kind of a, you know, an upgrade. So anyway, that's Intellivision. And then of course we've got the Nintendo. Everybody loves the Nintendo controller, and with its sharp edges and, you know, again, not the most comfortable thing to hold. So when they revised their controller, they came out with one that was shaped kind of like a dog bone, and the edges were rounded. And that of course was considered a nice upgrade, but it was a little too late. By the time that was out, you know, everybody was playing on their Genesis with their wonderfully rounded edges controller. And then, of course, after the days of the NES and the Genesis came the Super Nintendo and obviously the Jaguar. And the Jaguar's controller is pretty huge. There's a lot of controversy about this controller. Is it good? Is it not good? What's this telephone pad? You know, who wanted to go back to the 1970s or early 80s and put a telephone pad back on the controller? I don't know, but it actually, you know, gives you a lot of buttons to push, and if you put little pads over the top, it's kind of nice. They actually revised this controller, and a lot of people have never seen this revised Atari Jaguar controller. It's got 6 buttons instead of the normal 3. It's a little bit more streamlined, but just barely. It's slightly different from the original, but not much. But again, they wanted to upgrade with something with a few more buttons. Just exactly what that controller needed. Now we'll go on to the Sega Saturn. Alright, so at this point we have a rather large controller. It's got the D-pad and the 6 buttons. It's a little rickety. People like the rounded edges, the way it feels. And eventually they revised it to be the Japanese controller, which was obviously going to be smaller because, you know, Japanese hands are a lot smaller. So, and people in America like it a lot. It is the revised Sega pad where they decided to go smaller. But then eventually came the 3D pad, which was huge in comparison, and it did have these nice little trigger buttons, and it had the analog stick, which was it was released just right after the N64 controller, so it wasn't the first one with one of these analog toggles, but it was very close to the first, and it is the first controller with the nice triggers, analog triggers. Now we go on to PlayStation. We've got the original PlayStation 1 controller upgraded to the dual analog pad, which was huge in comparison to that. It had the nice analog sticks with indented thumbsticks. I don't know if you see that from here, but that's a little different for the Sony product. This was only released in limited quantities, and eventually, about the following year in 1997, they released this, which is the dual shock, and this actually had the vibration motors added. They went smaller, so it went from this size small to pretty large, back to small, but it did have the vibration motors, and obviously nobody wanted to play this anymore because it didn't. And lastly, we'll hit the Xbox. We can't forget the Xbox, and we've got ourselves the Duke right here. The Duke was just huge. It had this unique stretched out button configuration. People were, it got mixed reviews. So Microsoft then decided, well, let's make it a little bit more like the DualShock and a little bit more regimented look to it, and ultimately this was a much better success than the Duke was. All right, you can pick any of these controllers up online. You go to eBay, go to Craigslist or whatever. Speaking of Craigslist, we've got a couple of interesting things to share with you.
For discreet mail, must not have trouble with triples.
Hey guys, what's up?
Dude, Josh is totally trolling Craigslist for the casual encounters.
On my computer? No! You don't do that on my computer. Are you crazy? Do you know what kind of psycho, weirdo, freak, nut jobs are on Craigslist? No, not for my computer, not in my store. Come on, guys. Really?
You mad, bro?
I want to really get to know everything about you. I want to know what makes you tick. Emotionally, physically, and mentally. I want to open you up and crawl inside of you and live there until I know you better than I know myself. Please respond with a photo.
Alright, now we're going to talk about shameless video game cash-ins. Anytime something reaches pop culture status, whether that's a YouTube video or a movie, you can bet the video game companies are going to rush to try to make a profit off of it. And as sure as Michael Bay is going to screw up the Turtles movie in a few months, you can expect that trend to continue moving forward. Because there's just so many.
Yeah.
Alright, so first up, the Friends trivia game. Now, the first thing that you should realize, I understand, shameless video game cash-ins by nature is shameless, but if the only thing you got going for your source material is that you have to make a trivia game and that's all you can go on, it's probably a shameless cash-in.
Yeah.
I think it's probably safe to say.
Yeah. I'm going to go with, on the Sega CD, there were a trio of games, actually. Make your own music video games. There was CNC Music Factory, Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, and Crisscross, and you could piece together your own music videos.
Crisscross.
Just the worst thing possible. Yeah, I remember even then thinking it wasn't very cool.
Oh, don't act like Crisscross is a Majestic. You know it is. They totally deserve it. I don't even think that should be on this list.
Yeah, well.
So, all right, I'll also go trio of games. Kind of like moving away from music, fast food, the Burger King games. Everyone who got a 360 around launch remembers this because everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, I can get a game for $2 or what was it, $2.99 or $3.99?"
I think it was $2.99.
Like $2.99 with a food purchase at Burger King or something like that. And the games were not absolutely awful, but still pretty sparse.
We actually kind of enjoyed them.
Yeah, and to be fair, they were kind of cheaper than a lot of the Xbox Live titles that you would buy now.
Yeah.
But still, totally a shameless cash, and you just can't have a food game. You just can't do it.
My next one is Spice World. I'm going to stick with the music theme on this one. The Spice Girls actually had a video game based around their movie, Spice World.
Oh, I forgot they even had a movie. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even want to remember the Spice
Bad.
Girls period, but now I have to remember there was this horrible movie as well. Okay, well, if you're going to stick with music, I'm just going to keep going with food. Next one I will say is Yo-Noid for the NES, or the NES.
NES is not a word.
We'll talk
NES is not a word.
So, Yo-Noid was also just another one of those food kind of caches. But the thing is, Noid always looked really gross to me. I barely remember it because I was pretty young when Noid was popular.
Freakish.
Yeah, he's just this freakish thing. That's not. I don't want to see anything claymation when I'm eating pizza. Let alone Domino's. You're already bottom of the barrel if you have to eat Domino's anyways.
Yeah.
Sorry, Domino's, if you're watching, but it's true.
It's no Donato.
It's not Donato's. No, it's not. So.
My next one and last for today is every Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen game ever made.
You couldn't name them all.
No, you couldn't. There's too
Yeah.
many. They had a game like once a week. I think they came out with a game.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like back then, the Full House was like huge, and, you know. I mean, of course they're gonna cash in on it. It's like the.
I think their next upcoming game is Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen pose for Playboy.
See, that was my next follow-up.
That's all that's left for them.
It was gonna be like, so what would it look like today, Musby? You beat me to it. Like, it would be something horrible. So I think that's actually all we got. We're only gonna do like 3 each.
Yeah, that's it for this week. But we have many more. We'll come back to this segment another time.
Yeah, and let us know like what you think are some of the just most heinous cash-ins on you know, pop culture stuff for video games. There's tons out there, so
Yeah.
good stuff. All right.
All right, so thanks for watching. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of NerdKO. Stay tuned next week. We're doing bargain bin gyms and a few other great segments.
Yep, and don't forget to subscribe to the NerdKO YouTube channel and also the Geeks Podcast YouTube channel, because we'll be putting them up in both places. And that's all we've got for this week.
Yeah.
So how should we end it?
I don't know. We did the Sopranos.
We did
thing.
Sopranos. I mean, I thought it was okay.
It was punchy, but you know.
Yeah, it's not really topical.
No,
It's kind of old.
no.
Oh, we went for it though.
Yeah.
We I mean,
I'm looking for trouble with tribbles.
I'm out.
no.
It's got to be.
Stop! Just stop! Stop! Stop!
There, he's in the.